Welcome back to another video, and today we got our Week 2 college football top 25 rankings. We had Week 1 last week, which was our preseason rankings. Now we're back with Week 2. We got a lot to talk about. What a Week 1 way to, kick off the season. Ohio State versus Texas, Alabama versus Florida State. We had LSU Clemson. We had Notre Dame Miami. We had a bunch of other games that were really solid. So yeah, good for college football. Keep scheduling these early season games, these non-conference games, because it really just, makes the sport a whole lot better, more enjoyable to watch. Real quick before we get into it, though, we got to talk about the teams that did drop out of my top 25. I think it was 3 teams. First team, Kansas State. They lost week 0 to Iowa State, so they were already 0-1. I left them in. They almost lost to North Dakota. They needed a very last second drive to go ahead and win that game against North Dakota. So yeah, they're out of there. Long gone. Boise State goes out and loses 34-7 to South Florida. It was a road game, but like 34-7. I mean, maybe Gentry was really just all that for them. And the last team that did end up dropping out of my top 25 is Baylor. I was very high on Baylor coming into the season. They did end up losing on Friday night to Auburn. Auburn was a good team, though. I thought that game could definitely go either way. Auburn won 38-24, though. A couple teams I considered. We'll go ahead and show 25. 25 is Utah. Real quick, a couple teams I considered, though, for the top 25 was Auburn, just because they beat Baylor, so I was thinking about them. Georgia Tech got a good win against Colorado. I thought about TCU after they blew out Bill Belichick and UNC. And I also thought about South Florida, just because they beat Boise State. BYU's getting a lot of votes. I'm not too sure about them yet. I thought about Tulane. They beat Northwestern. I thought about Nebraska. They got a good win. But mostly, this was the top 25 pretty clearly in my head. Let's go ahead and start with Utah. I think I said last week Utah was close to my top 25. Well, they are in it now. They go out on the road to UCLA, beat UCLA 43-10. Nico Iamaleava just gets absolutely mauled by this Utah team, and yeah, it was just rough. Devin Dampier looked really good in this game. 21 for 25, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 87 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown. I mean, Utah ran for 286 yards as a team. When you're doing that, you're likely going to win the game. They looked absolutely dominant in this one. They got an upcoming game against Cal Poly. I think they win here, no problems. But this makes the Big 12 even more competitive than it already was. I think it's as wide open as can be right now. And Utah could definitely be, a contender in this conference. We know how good their coach is. 24 I have Indiana moving down 7 spots. They're one of the biggest fallers, actually, this week. They just didn't look very good. I think I may have had them a little too highly rated last week, so that's on me. The AP poll was a little lower on them than I was. I just, believed in Curt Cignetti. I believed in the guys they brought in, Fernando Mendoza, to come in and play, well. I thought he could potentially be better than Curtis Rourke. We'll see. That could still be the case. He threw for 193 yards, did not have a very good game. Roman Hemby, running the ball, had a really good game. Really, the whole team, actually. I mean, I didn't even know this. Indiana had 309 rushing yards as a team, and it was this close of a game. It was 27-14. I didn't really watch this game too much. Old Dominion ran the opening kick back. That's fun. Indiana was up 17-7. I guess they were up 27-7 at one point. I don't know. They didn't look great, though. From what I've heard, they didn't look all that dominant. I mean, they only won by 13 points against Old Dominion. Should be a little bit more than that. Upcoming game against Kennesaw State, I do think they will get going a little bit in this game. Kind of let Fernando Mendoza, go. And because he had under 200 passing yards, I think they'll be better this week. They better, because they got an upcoming game really soon against Illinois. Tennessee is going to move into the top 25. I was a little lower on them. I was a little hesitant on them. They were the only team in the AP poll that I did not have in my rankings. Now they are here. They go out and beat Syracuse 45-26. I thought this game could be a fun game, could be kind of interesting. Tennessee just really dominated the whole time. I mean, there was a chance where Syracuse kind of maybe had something going, but Tennessee, after the end of the first quarter, was up 17-0. They returned a fumble in the first quarter. I mean, they were just dominating. At halftime, it was 31-14. They come out of the second half, score right away. Joey Aguilar, I believe that's how you say his name, looked pretty good. There was a little bit of a stretch there in the fourth quarter where Syracuse made it kind of interesting. Tennessee did hold on, though. But yeah, like I said, Joey Aguilar, almost 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. Star Thomas at running back and Deshaun Bishop both had over 80 yards. Just a really solid game. They had a lot. The receivers look nice. I think Tennessee will once again be a pretty solid team. They play ETSU, Eastern Tennessee State. I think they win. I think they score a lot of points once again. They have Georgia very, very soon. That is a huge game. We'll see what happens. They get it at home, though. It could be interesting. Number 22, I'm going to have SMU. I like Kevin Jennings, obviously. I think SMU is a solid team. I'm not going to have them as high as the AP poll does as of right now. But I do think they're a really solid team. Obviously, they beat East Texas A&M 42-13. They dominated, really. They had a punt return. They returned it for a touchdown, and then there was a holding. I saw that. That was interesting. But yeah, SMU at one point was up 42-3 in this game. They dominated the whole way through. Kevin Jennings threw for 260 yards. Just a really solid game. The receivers were getting open for them. They had no problems. Now they play Baylor. This is an interesting game. People are kind of... I haven't heard much about this game on the radar of the best games of the week. I think this is one of the best games of the week. Like I said, I had Baylor ranked last week. I know they lost to Auburn. They didn't look too great. Maybe they can bounce back, though. I'm going to take SMU to win. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be very exciting. Baylor, for only putting up... I guess they put up a decent amount of points against Auburn, but for losing by 14 points, they had over 400 yards passing, I think, or something crazy like that. They had a lot of passing yards last week against Auburn. They had a lot of just yards in general against Auburn. They put up 24 points, but their quarterback threw for 419 yards. They almost had 500 yards as a team. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think SMU does win. They're at home, but I could see Baylor going out and winning this game. And then I may consider putting Baylor back in the top 25. We'll see, because I am still pretty high on them. But I'm going to take SMU at home. Number 21 is going to be Ole Miss. They take care of business against Georgia State, 63-7. Not much to talk about here. We kind of knew this was going to happen. I didn't expect them to struggle really at all. They lost a lot of their playmakers from last year, so it's going to be tough to replace that. But they threw for 400 yards, and the receivers looked pretty solid. Granted, it was against Georgia State, so we'll see if that can kind of carry through. Austin Simmons, their QB, did throw 2 picks. That could be a little concerning. But, they had 4 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns. I mean, their running back, Lacey, ran for 108 yards and 3 touchdowns. Logan Diggs had 91 yards and a touchdown. They could really just do whatever they wanted in this game, so I'm not going to take much from this. This is a pretty big game. I also haven't heard much about this game. Ole Miss at Kentucky. It's an SEC game on the road. It's never easy to do. Kentucky's always one of those tricky teams in the SEC that kind of plays above their roster talent. They always give Georgia some problems for some reason. Can they do it to Ole Miss? Maybe. They get them early in the season. Austin Simmons, like I said, Ole Miss's QB did throw 2 picks, so we'll see. I think this game could get a little tricky for Ole Miss. I think they'll pull away late. I think it's going to be closer than some may think. I actually do have Ole Miss covering, though, so maybe I'm lying. But I think it's going to be a close game through 3 quarters. I just think Ole Miss will have enough. I think they just have more talent overall, so I do think they win. But a road SEC game this early in the season is pretty tough, so we'll see what happens there. Actually, is this even... Yeah, this is an SEC game. Sorry, I know I was thinking that maybe this was some weird thing, but they have Georgia State, Tulane, Washington State, Citadel. That's 4, so they play their 8 games. So this is an SEC game. Just wanted to confirm that. Number 20 is where I'm gonna have if it will load. Number 20 is where I'm gonna have Texas Tech They win 67-7 over Arkansas Pine Bluff. Like kind of similar with Ole Miss, we kind of knew that was going to happen. We knew they were going to blow them out. I thought maybe they would struggle just a little, just because their guys were all new. I mean, they brought in a lot of guys. Spent a lot of money on this team. Now, I'm not super set on the quarterback situation here. I think that could be a problem, but I'm not going to be too worried as of right now. I'm just going to leave him at 20 till I see more. Kent State, I do think they win, though, pretty easily there. I'm not too worried. Maybe it's a little closer than I have the score, but, like, they're favored by 48.5, so I don't know. I think Texas Tech at home will take care of business once again. Number 19 is going to be where I have Alabama. Now, we got to talk about this. We're going to take some time on this. So they go into Florida State as 13.5 favorites against a team that went 2-10 last year. Alabama, with all the expectations in the world after missing the playoffs last year, only winning 9 games. I think they went 9-4 last year. If you're Alabama, that's unacceptable. I know it's Kalen DeBoer's first year, but that just can't happen. I mean, Alabama is one of the premier programs. They have always been, at least once Saban got there, and they've been that since then. I mean, it's. I guess you can lose this game. It's obviously not ideal because DeBoer was already somewhat on the hot seat. Now he definitely is. Like, if he goes 8-4, like, that's a realistic with this schedule. That's realistic to say he could go 8-4. This was a game they needed to win. He loses. Now DeBoer is in a bit of trouble. We'll see what happens. They still have, like, probably a top 10 roster, probably, just based off talent. I know they didn't have Jam Miller, so that's unfortunate for this game. But, like, I mean, man, they just didn't look like they were trying. They were getting out physical. They looked like Florida State just looked like they cared more. The team just didn't look like they cared. Now, people are calling for DeBoer to be fired, Ty Simpson to be benched. I'm not ready to say that yet, but I feel like Alabama just didn't have, like, any like spark, anything going for them. They didn't have any, like, juice. It was weird. They couldn't run the ball. Florida State was dominating them on the lines of scrimmage. Ty Simpson had 254 yards, but he was 23 for 43. Without Jeremy Bernard, I mean, this team would have not have done anything. He almost had 150 yards receiving. Ryan Williams just didn't do anything. They had him in the slot all game. It was weird. Usually he's on the outside. I don't know what that was about. But yeah, he had 5 catches for 30 yards. He didn't do anything, really. Obviously, that Alabama fumble was rough. That was kind of, I mean, it was just. We'll talk more about Florida State side of things when we get to them. But yeah, if you're an Alabama fan, I would be panicked. I wouldn't fire DeBoer yet. I wouldn't bench Ty Simpson yet. I'd give him a little bit more time. I mean, but like, look at the schedule: home versus Wisconsin, at Georgia, home versus Tennessee, at South Carolina, home versus LSU, home versus Oklahoma, at Auburn. Like that Auburn game could really be a loss this year. At South Carolina, the way LSU's looking, I mean that's probably a loss. At South Carolina's tough. At Georgia, probably a loss. I mean that's like almost like if they lose all those games, they're going 7-5. I don't think they'll lose all of them, but like man, that's brutal. Yeah, Alabama's in a bit of trouble right now. Out of all the teams that lost, all the ranked teams that lost, Alabama's probably the one I'm most concerned about. I do think they'll beat UL Monroe pretty easily, but man, they just did not look good against Florida State. Hopefully they get the effort up because it just wasn't there. Number 18 is going to be Texas A&M, moving down 2 spots. They kind of struggled against UTSA, so I moved them down 2. I think they're fine, though. I mean, it's week 1. There's going to be struggle games for every team, so I'll give them a little bit of a pass. UTSA's, I guess, solid. Marcel Reed was pretty good, though. 289 yards, 4 tutties. He had 39 yards on the ground as well. Yeah, they just looked a little bit iffy. Not too bad, though. I mean, they were up 11 at halftime. UTSA kind of stuck around in the third quarter, but Texas A&M did end up like pulling away in that second half. I think they'll be fine though. I just wanted to put a couple more teams ahead of them. Utah State though, I do think they'll bounce back. I think they'll have a bit of a better game. I think it will be a similar kind of final score, but I think they will play much better in this game. And then at Notre Dame, that's a huge game coming up next week for them. We'll see what happens then. We're obviously not going to make our prediction yet. That'll be next week's top 25 rankings. Number 17, I'm going to have Arizona State. They also had a bit of a struggle against Northern Arizona. Like I said, I mean, it's week one. There's going to be some teams that struggle. The AP poll has them all the way up at 12. I think that's a little high. I had them at 15, and the AP poll had them at 11 last week. I think it's a bit high. Losing Cam Scadaboo, obviously, they're going to have to adjust to that. That's a huge loss. I mean, it was 17-6 at halftime. They go out right away and score in the second half. Then Northern Arizona did respond with a touchdown of their own, but Arizona State did kind of pull away in the second half, similar to A&M. Sam Levitt looked decent. I think he'll be fine. I think he's one of the better QBs in the country. I'm not too worried about him. He also had 73 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns, as well as 257 passing and 2 touchdowns through the air. Jordan Tyson was absolutely phenomenal. 141 yards on 12 catches with 2 touchdowns. That is amazing. I think Arizona State will be fine. Now, it's a road SEC game, and I talked about this. I think this game is going to be very close. I think this is one of the better games we have this week. I'm going to say they win. I'm going to say similar to the Ole Miss-Kentucky game. I think they'll pull away late. I just think they're more talented, honestly. I think Jordan Tyson will be able to make some plays. I think Sam Levitt will be able to make some plays if they let him loose. I do think they win, but I think it could be kind of close for a while. Number 16 is going to be Iowa State. They're moving up 3 spots. They're 2-0. And they looked really good in both their games. They beat Kansas State and Ireland. It's a weird game. It's week 0. I know Kansas State didn't look very good last week, but they were ranked to start the season. Rocco Becht looks really solid. They put up 55 points. I mean, come on. He threw for 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. They had 4 rushing touchdowns as a team. They just looked really good, and I like Iowa State. I think they're the highest ranked Big 12 team I have, so that's interesting. Now, it's a big game this week. It's the Cyhawk game, big rivalry here. Iowa State is favored by 3.5, so we'll see what happens here. It is in Ames. I believe that's where Iowa State is, so we'll see. I mean, if we're being honest, this game will be low scoring like it always is. It's going to be physical. It's going to be a bloodbath. Who will come out on top? I'm not sure, actually. I think Iowa was a team last week that I was considering for the top 25. I was thinking about them this week as well. Not too much. But if Iowa wins this game, they'll be ranked for sure next week. I've seen some people actually picking Iowa to win straight up. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pick Iowa State. I think they've proven more. I think they have more talent. But, talent only goes so far. And in this type of game where we know it's going to be low scoring, it's going to be physical, it's going to come down to, defense and special teams. I think Iowa may have the edge on those sides of the ball. So Iowa can definitely go out and win this game. I'm just going to take Iowa State based off the fact I think at home they get the crowd into it a little bit, and I think Rocco Becht is a much better QB than Iowa. So I'm going to take Iowa State. I think they have a little bit more juice, but Iowa could for sure win that game. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if they did. Number 15 is going to be Oklahoma, moving up 3 spots. They go out and beat Illinois State 35-3. Honestly, it's not like a crazy big win. Only 35 points. But John Mateer looked really good in this game. He set the Oklahoma record for passing yards in a debut. He threw for 392 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have a pick. It's kind of weird. I feel like if you're throwing almost 400 yards, you should have more than 35 points. But sometimes that's just how it goes. They did have a pick. They did have a fumble they lost. But yeah, I mean, the playmakers on this team, they had almost 3 guys over 90 yards receiving. Keontez Lewis had 119 and 2 tutties. Deion Burks, I really like him. I think he's probably their best receiver. He had 7 receptions, 88 yards, and a tutty. Um, Oklahoma is very intriguing, and they get the game of the week this week. Last week, the game of the week was, Ohio State, Texas. I mean, if you want to go LSU, Clemson, but it's probably Ohio State, Texas. There was a million good games this week. This is the only ranked versus ranked game this week, I believe. But it's a big one. I mean, Michigan and Bryce Underwood are going to have to come into Norman and challenge Brent Venables and this Oklahoma team who looked really good. Who do I have in this game? I think it could for sure go either way. I could for sure see Michigan with the way they ran the ball last week against New Mexico. Justice Haynes looks really good. I think Michigan could potentially control the pace of this game and win here. I'm going to say Oklahoma wins. I think Michigan will cover. I just trust John Mateer at this point more than Bryce Underwood. Could that change in the near future? For sure. I mean, obviously Michigan, on paper, I think Oklahoma has the edge. I think they have a couple more playmakers. I think John Mateer is better at this point than Bryce Underwood is. They have it at home. It's a night game. I think that crowd's going to be electric. And I think the Brent Venables defense, if Michigan does try to control the pace, I think his defense will be fine with that. I think they'll be able to get some stops. And I don't know if John Mateer goes out and lights it up against Michigan, which I'm not sure if he will. Michigan usually has a good defense. But if he does, I'm not sure if Bryce Underwood will be able to respond with that. We'll see. We haven't really. This is his first real test, and I feel like as a freshman he may be a little too pumped up in this one, make some mistakes, kind of do what Arch Manning did last week against Ohio State. We'll talk about that very soon. So I do think Oklahoma wins, but could Michigan win for sure? I mean, they're one of those teams that no matter how talented their roster is, no matter how lackluster it is, they can really go out and beat anyone. But I am going to take Oklahoma, but Michigan could for sure win this game. Florida State moves up 12 spots, biggest climber this week. Shout out to Mike Norvell getting this win. I mean, people are saying he's on the hot seat. He goes 13-0, misses the playoffs, and then goes 2-10 the following season, last season. Now they open up their 2025 season with a win against Alabama, and all of a sudden there's another contender in the ACC, and the ACC looks really, really strong this year. Miami got a huge win. Clemson, still a top 10 team. And now Florida State kind of out of nowhere is in this mix. You still have SMU ranked as well. I think Florida State, the most surprising win of the week for sure. I mean, nobody saw this coming. Tommy Castellanos only threw for 152 yards. He only attempted 14 passes, though. I mean, they just controlled the game. I mean, if you look at the box score, there was a million different running backs that ran the ball for them. All of them had 6 carries. They all had 20, 30 yards. I mean, Castellanos was running all over them as well. He had 16 rushes for 78 yards and a tutty. But really, what it was is they just out-physicaled Alabama. They controlled the game, and they just looked like they came out more ready to play. They looked like they were coached better. They looked like they were trying harder, and that's really all it is. So if Florida State can continue to play like this, I mean, they're a really exciting team and kind of out of nowhere. I think they'll beat East Texas A&M pretty handily. SMU handled them. I think Florida State will as well. But yeah, huge, huge win. And you look at the rest of the schedule, it is kind of tough. They have a home game against Miami, and they also play at Clemson, at Florida. But man, I mean, coming off a 2-10 season, nobody expected this. They go out and beat a top 10 team week 1. So good for the Seminoles. We'll see if they can continue this. Number 13 is where I'm going to have Michigan. I'm going to drop them 2 spots. They did struggle a little against New Mexico. They won by 17. Bryce Underwood looked good. 251 yards, 1 touchdown. Not anything crazy. The guy who really showed out was Justice Haynes. 16 carries, 159 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's good for almost 10 yards a carry. I mean, he had a 59-yard run in there. Justice Haynes was just absolutely phenomenal for them. And it's not like, they were struggling too bad. I mean, there was a point late in the second where it was 17-10, but Michigan did end up scoring a touchdown to go into halftime up 24-10. It was a 10-point game in the fourth quarter, so that's a little concerning. But it's not like, they were losing at any point, so I guess that's good. They were up 17-0. New Mexico did kind of come back a little, but it wasn't enough. Michigan did pull it out. We talked about this. I just think Bryce Underwood is bound to make a mistake or two in this one. I just trust John Mateer a little bit more. I think he's one of the best QBs in the country, and he really showed out last week for them. It's a road game at night in that environment against those playmakers. Now, could Justice Haynes just repeat what he did last week and just run all over Oklahoma? I mean, he could. You never really know. Michigan's defense could just out-physical them. They could just win the battle in the trenches, and then Oklahoma could be in trouble. But I'm just gonna assume that Bryce Underwood struggles a little in his first real test. It's on the road at night as well. But we'll see. Michigan could for sure win this game. I have them ranked ahead of Oklahoma for a reason. I just think Oklahoma wins this game at this point now. If this was played at the end of the year, I'd probably pick Michigan. But as of right now, I'm going to take Oklahoma to win. Number 12 is going to be Florida. They win 55-0 against Long Island. Kind of expected. Wasn't really, looking for anything crazy. Lagway, 120 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think he got taken out. Probably a good thing just because, he tends to get injured, so it's probably a good idea. I think they took him out at halftime or something, but they were up 38-0 at halftime, and I mean, it's Long Island. You can take what you want from that. Now, this is an interesting game against South Florida. South Florida did beat Boise State. If it was at South Florida, I'd probably get a little bit more excited about this one. The fact that it's, going to be at Florida is a little bit tough for South Florida. I think they'll win. I think it could be a little closer than some people are giving them credit for. But I'm going to trust Florida to win. I don't know necessarily if I think it's going to be like a pull away late. I just think they'll kind of be in control of this game, up like 2 scores, 3 scores the whole way through. I got them winning 35-20. Could they win by more for sure? They're favored by 17.5, so I do have South Florida covering. But yeah, I think Florida will win. Number 11 is going to be South Carolina. They're moving up 2. I thought about moving them down. I thought about kind of keeping them where they're at. I do end up just moving them up 2, keeping them ahead of the teams I had them ahead of last week. But South Carolina wins 24-11 against Virginia Tech. Lenore Sellers looked really, really good. He was making plays out there. He only had 25 rushing yards off 13 carries, but he had a rushing touchdown. He had a passing touchdown. Nick Harbor looks like an absolute stud. He's like 6'5". He's super fast. I know he runs track and he's really good at it. But man, I'm not sure. I think he might have quit track. I think that's what I heard the announcer say. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But yeah, he had 3 receptions, 99 yards, and a touchdown. He obviously had the big catch, 64-yarder one. But Nick Harbor, if he can turn into like a real wide receiver 1 for this team, they are going to be dangerous because their defense looked really good. Held Virginia Tech to 11 points. They just couldn't do anything. I think against SC State, they kind of roll through them, no problems, and move on into SEC play, looking really strong. So good for South Carolina. Number 10, we're kicking off the top 10 with Illinois. Illinois beats Western Illinois 52-3. They looked really solid in doing so. Luke Altmaier had a nice game. And yeah, they ran for 200-plus yards as a team. Now, at Duke is a little tricky. They're only favored by 2.5, which is kind of crazy, honestly. It's a noon game at Duke. Could be interesting. I think Illinois will win. I think they'll cover. I don't think Duke is really all that special this year. It is a road game, though, early, but I think Illinois is experienced. They brought back a lot of their guys from last year, and I think Luke Altmaier has the experience to get this one done. So I have them beating Duke 30-21 in this one. I think they'll cover. 2.5 seems a little bit low to me. I know it's a road game, but I think they'll win. I have them winning 30-21. Moving on over, though, to our number 9 team, it's going to be Notre Dame. This is, we got to talk about this game, the Miami game. It was a great game. It was at Miami. I thought for sure they could lose this game. Carson Beck coming in to Miami, coming over to Miami. CJ Carr coming in first start with the team. He was all right. 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Jeremiah Love really didn't do much in this game. We know he's a stud, but he had 10 carries for 33 yards, and he also had 4 receptions for 26 yards. That's 59 yards total. I mean, you'd like to see him do a little bit more. I know that's not terrible, obviously. But yeah, it was a great game. Miami just kind of handled. I mean, it was back and forth really. Miami was up 21-7 though. I mean, they were in control for most of this game. Notre Dame did kind of come back late. They had the touchdown to start the fourth to make it a one-score game. Then Miami goes down and kicks a field goal because they threw an interception. And then, Notre Dame does go down, kick a field goal. They get the stop right away. They go down and score a touchdown, and then obviously Miami gets the game-winning field goal. It was a great game. Am I worried about Notre Dame? Not really. I think they could for sure still be a playoff team. You look at the schedule. I mean, I don't know if there's a loss on the schedule besides maybe the Texas A&M game, but they get it at home. I don't think Boise State's all that good this year. USC could be interesting. Just because it's a rivalry game, USC looks pretty good. But, they're probably going 11-1, so I think they should still be a playoff team. But obviously, you would have liked to win that game. We'll see, though. They don't play Texas A&M this week. They get a bye, so they get a little break here between these two games because these are their 2 biggest weeks of the season for sure. So, yeah, Notre Dame starting off 0-1 is tough, but I think they'll be all right. I'm not too worried. Number 8 is going to be Clemson. Kind of same thing with Notre Dame. They were actually at home. It's not like they were on the road. I thought Clemson would win this game. I thought, both these teams were definitely experienced for sure. Obviously, you probably have the top 2 QBs in the country playing in this game, Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik looked all right. He only completed half of his passes, but he had 230 yards and a pick. Clemson just could not run the ball. I mean, LSU was just so stout defensively. Clemson really could not do anything. They only put up 10 points. And it was all in the first half. They didn't score in the second half. They were up 10-3 at halftime. LSU goes out, scores a touchdown in the third. They score a touchdown in the fourth. And Clemson just could not move the ball. They couldn't run the ball. I mean, it was honestly, I don't want to say concerning for Clemson. It was more just how good LSU looked. We'll talk about LSU when we get to them. I'm not really worried about Clemson. Kind of the same thing with the Notre Dame game. I mean, besides at South Carolina, what is the loss here? At Georgia Tech maybe could be tough. Georgia Tech's a team I thought about ranking. I mean, UNC looked really bad last night, I guess I should say. They have home against SMU, which is ranked, home against Florida State, but I think they probably win both those games. I mean, they're probably their floor is probably 10-2, which might still be enough to get in the playoff. I don't know. I think this Clemson team will be fine. I think there's a good chance they run the table all the way through. I mean, you look at the talent they brought back. They brought back 16 starters. I'm not too worried. It's week 1, and LSU looks like an absolute juggernaut of a team. Clemson's defense did play pretty well though, so I'll give them that. I think against Troy they really just let loose and let it fly. I think they'll dominate them. Number 7 is going to be Texas. This is the last game we haven't talked about really yet. Ohio State wins at 14-7. I thought Texas was going to win. I really did. I thought of the 3 top 10 games, LSU, Clemson, Notre Dame, Miami, and then Ohio State, Texas. These were this was the game that I kind of felt the most confident in my pick. I thought Texas was going to win this game, but I was wrong. Texas goes out, loses his game in Columbus. Arch Manning he looked a little flustered. He looked a little unready for the moment. He kind of figured it out late, which is why I think Texas will be fine. I'm not going to overreact too much on this loss. I do have him moving down 6 spots, but I just have to at this point as of right now. They only put up 7 points, so, Ohio State's defense does look like maybe the best in the country, though. I mean, that defense was just ridiculous all game. Texas's receivers just couldn't get open, and then when they did, Arch was missing throws. Um, I will say, though, Texas's defense played really well. Jeremiah Smith really didn't do much in this game, so that's a good sign. They really shut him down. And yeah, I mean, they got stopped on fourth down 4 times. They were getting a bunch of penalties in bad spots. The Arch Manning was missing throws. They played a really bad game, and it was on the road, and they only lost by 7 points, and they had a chance. They were driving to tie the game with what, 2 minutes left in the fourth. I mean, they played a really, really bad game, and they only lost by 7 points on the road to the defending national champs. If I'm a Texas fan, I'm not that worried. I think Texas is going to be just fine. Arch will be fine. Like I said, I mean, you look at how he played in the fourth quarter. He was kind of letting it go. Sarkisian also called a really weird game. He wasn't really giving Arch that much of a chance. He was kind of playing safe. But yeah, I mean, Texas played a rough game, and they only lost by 7 points. So I think they'll be fine. I think against San Jose State, they go out and look really nice. I think they let Arch throw it around a little bit, kind of get comfortable. Now we're into the top 6. This is, we're out of that group of teams that lost that were ranked high. All these teams from now on are undefeated. Georgia goes out and beats Marshall 45-7. I didn't really watch this game too much. I heard Gunnar Stockton look solid, though. 190 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 73 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns, so that's fun. They're letting him run around. I think that gives this offense kind of 2 dynamics, which is good. And you look at the problem with Georgia last year. It was kind of the receivers. The playmaking just wasn't there. They have Zachariah Branch now. He went for 3 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown. He caught a 47-yard pass. That's obviously huge for them to get a playmaker like that. I think against Austin Peay, it will just be kind of a similar game like they had against Marshall. I think, they'll blow them out once again. But at Tennessee, that next week is a really good game. We'll see what happens there. Number 5, we're into the top 5. I'm going to have Oregon. The AP poll actually has Oregon at 6 and Georgia at 4. I have Oregon ahead of Georgia at this point. But it is very close. These two are definitely interchangeable. Oregon puts up 59 points, though. Dante Moore looked really solid, 213 yards, 3 touchdowns. I was a little worried about him, how well he looked. He looked good. Only missed 5 passes, completed 18. Noah Whittington ran for 68 yards and a touchdown. I mean, man, if this team had Evan Stewart, it would just be so much of a better team. De'Corian Moore looked all right. He only had 3 catches for 26 yards. I think he'll expand his role as the season goes on. They kind of need him to. I think Oregon is a really good team. I think they have a bunch of talent, obviously. Now, this game against Oklahoma State is interesting. They're favored by 28.5. I think Oklahoma State will cover. I think Oregon will be fine. But it is kind of early in the season. I don't know if I see them blowing them out by that much. Obviously, they have the talent advantage by far. But will they go out and beat them by 5 scores? I mean, I don't know. Could they? For sure, yeah. They have it at home, too. Like I said, the talent mismatch is very, very large. But yeah, if I'm Oregon, I'm not worried. I think Dante Moore looked really nice in his first start, and they got Penn State week 5. That's at the end of this month. Like, we're in the month where they play that game. That is a huge game. I have that as a top 5 game right now, and it probably will be come when the game actually happens at the end of September. Very excited for that one. Number 4 is going to be Miami. Miami's behind. Miami's 5. They're ahead of Oregon, but behind Georgia in the AP poll. I have them ahead of both. I mean, they went out and beat Notre Dame and really controlled that game. They just looked like the better team. Carson Beck played really, really well. Um, and they had their two running backs also played really well. They both got 15 carries each. Mark Fletcher Jr. had 66 yards. Charmar Brown had 54 yards. The receivers look really nice. They were making plays for Carson Beck, which he didn't really have at Georgia. I think this Miami team, they last year they were very exciting because of Cam Ward. I think this team as a team is probably better. They just look a little more complete. And you look at the schedule. I mean, home against Florida and at Florida State, that's a brutal back to back, and then at SMU is going to be tough. I think they'll probably beat SMU though. But if they just split the Florida and Florida State game, they're going to be 11-1. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're probably going to be playing in the ACC championship game. Miami's in a really good spot right now. That is a huge win to get for them against Notre Dame. We'll see how the rest of the season plays out, though. Last season we were saying they're going to be a playoff team. They were going to win the ACC, and then they end up losing games they shouldn't. Now, I don't think this team will be like that just because I think their defense is much better, and I think as a team they look a lot better. And they kind of just did what they wanted against Notre Dame. They really controlled that game. So I think Miami will be a little bit less prone to that this year than they were last year. I think against Bethune-Cookman, they'll win pretty easily. I'm not too worried. I think Carson Beck will have another great game. It's Bethune-Cookman. I mean, you know what I mean. Number 3 is going to be Penn State. This may be a shocker to some of you. I said Penn State could very well be number 1 last week, and I think you could make the argument that they should be number 1 this week. Because if you're making that argument last week, number 1 loss, they should theoretically move up. They were number 2 last week. And they may still have the team. They may still be the team I trust the most. Probably not anymore. But last week, you can make that argument. Obviously, they have Drew Aller. They brought back their 2 running backs. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. I was blanking on the names. I think at this point, just because of the 2 teams ahead of them just picked up absolutely amazing wins, I'm going to have Penn State below those 2 for now. But if they go out and beat Oregon, depending on how they do it, they could for sure jump those teams. I'm not against that. They play FIU, which is going to be an easy win. They're favored by 43.5, and they play Villanova, which is an FCS team for Oregon. Penn State's schedule is really easy. We kind of talked about that. They really only have those 2 games. At Iowa could be a little tricky. But Penn State is going to be a playoff team. I stand by that 100%. In the game against Nevada, they looked really good. I didn't expect them to kind of start out slow just because of the amount of guys they were bringing back. They didn't really do much on the ground. I mean, Nick Singleton had 8 carries for 19 yards. He did have 2 touchdowns, but they didn't really need to. Obviously, they're probably gonna save some stuff for Oregon because they're not gonna have to do much against FIU and Villanova. I think they'll win against FIU, kind of a similar score. But Penn State is going to be 3. There's not much to talk about. We know they're good, but just the 2 teams ahead of them are a little more exciting at this point. Did get some big wins, so I'm going to have them ahead. But you can make the argument for any order of this top 3 for sure. Number 2, though, I'm going to have LSU. They're moving up 6 spots. LSU is a team that a lot of people thought could win it all in the preseason. And I was one of those people. I did have them ranked 8th, so they were a little lower on my list. But now they are maybe number 1. Clemson was my team that I thought would win it all. And LSU went into Clemson and beat them. So at this point, LSU is probably my pick to win it all. Garrett Nussmeier, amazing game, 232 yards and a touchdown. Caden Durham, I think that's how you say his name, Caden Durham maybe. 17 carries, 74 yards, and a touchdown. The offense was never the question for LSU. We know what they have playmakers on the outside. We knew this coming in, and they've always had that. The question was the defense. For the past 5 years, ever since Joe Burrow, LSU has not had a really competent defense at all. They just couldn't get stops. That's why they were losing with Jaden Daniels. That's why they were losing last year. Um, well, they have that now. That defensive performance they showed against Clemson, holding them to 10 points on the road at night in that environment. They, Clemson couldn't run the ball, and they didn't score in the second half. Like LSU just shut them down. And they played against a really good defense as well. So they had 17 points, which is a little bit low, but like you gotta remember Clemson has a really good defense as well, and they scored 14 of those points in the second half. They only scored 3 in the first half, so they did start out a little slow, but they figured it out and they looked really, really good. Like I can't like stop saying. I mean LSU, like I said, they're probably my team. If I had to pick one right now to win it all, I'd probably pick LSU. Looking ahead, looking at the schedule for them, like seeing if that's actually realistic. Well, they play Florida next week. Not this week, but next week at home. I think they'll win. But that's like a top 15 game. That's a huge game. They play at Ole Miss. They play home against South Carolina. They play home against A&M. They play at Alabama, but we don't know how good they'll be. At Oklahoma, we don't know how good they'll be at that point in the season just because of how good their schedule is. I think the schedule is really favorable. I think, at Clemson was probably the hardest game on their schedule, and they just won and looked really good in doing so. So LSU is going to be my number 2 team. You could definitely argue for number 1. That's how good they looked. I think they probably looked better than Ohio State. Ohio State just beat the number 1 team, and, they were – it's not like Ohio State was ranked 8th. They were 3. They move up to 1. LSU was 8, so they move up to 2. I think that's fair. 48-6 is my prediction for this game against Louisiana Tech. I think they'll win very easily. They could definitely shut them out as well. I mean, that defense was ridiculous. LSU with the defense, man, that is scary. But number 1's going to be Ohio State. I think this is the number 1 team right now. They go out and beat Texas 14-7. They held the number 1 team in the country to 7 points. They stopped Texas 4 times on 4th down, twice in the red zone. And, at the end of the game, Texas was getting some momentum. Arch was starting to feel himself a little bit. They scored that touchdown. They got a stop. Arch had a chance. The defense came through once again. That linebacker duo, Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles, I mean, they were ridiculous. Ohio State wasn't getting much pressure. I was a little worried about that. They did get a couple sacks, I think, though. Ohio State's DBs, though, played really, really well. Jermaine Matthews had a pick. I mean, Texas receivers just weren't getting up. And then when they were, Arch was just missing throws until, like, the end of the game. The end of the game, Texas was worrying me a little bit. Actually, also, right away coming out of the second half, they had a really nice drive. Then they got stopped on the 1-yard line. To that red zone defense, that goal line defense. Ohio State's red zone defense was ridiculous last year, and it looks like it will be again. So that's obviously scary. Now Ohio State still has kind of a tough schedule. You look at that 3-game stretch in the middle there: at Illinois, at Wisconsin, home against Penn State. That's brutal. At Washington could be tricky as well. Hopefully they keep this focus. They don't get too comfortable after this Texas win, because it is a huge win. And can we talk about how ever since they lost to Michigan last year, they beat Tennessee by 25 points. They beat Oregon by 20 points. They beat Texas by 14. They beat Notre Dame by 11. Then they go out and beat Texas again. I mean, that is like 5 huge wins in a row. All top 10, I believe. I mean, like, it has been an absolute insane run Ohio State's been on, and it's looking like it's going to continue. People aren't really talking about this. They're saying the offense looked bad. It was Sain's first start, and I think he played better than Arch. I think they didn't really let him do much, and Ryan Day kind of said this. They were saying they wanted to play it safe. They didn't want him to have to kind of get out of his comfort zone right away against Texas. They wanted to kind of ease him in. And he didn't need to, just because how good the defense was playing. Like I said, they probably have the best defense in the country at this point, until I'm shown otherwise. And yeah, I know Jeremiah Smith didn't do much, but he was getting a lot of double. They were kind of holding him a little ticky tacky stuff. That's obviously, but he didn't have a great game, which is fine. Carnell Tate did though. He looked really good. I think C.J. Donaldson will be solid for them. I was a little worried about the running backs replacing. I mean, and just the fact that the amount of guys they replaced. I think they said they replaced 16 starters. I mean, that is just an impossible task, and they did so. So, yeah, they beat the number one team in the country 14-7. A lot of people were writing them off. And one more thing. Not many people were talking about this, but Ohio State was at their 2-yard line, 3 or 4 drives that game. They only scored 14 points. That's probably why they couldn't really do much from that. They were kind of having to run the ball, then they would punt, give Texas great field position, and the defense would just stop them. So I think that's a good reason why Ohio State was what is ranked number one, best defense in the country at this point. They were giving Texas great field position, and they couldn't do anything. They were getting stopped on fourth down left and right. They forced almost 2 picks. They only had one because one got overturned. But yeah, Sand played. He did all they asked him to do. He did all they needed him to do for them to win, and that's all you need. You just got to win. But yeah, I mean, just the fact the offense was pinned inside the 3-yard line, literally 3 or 4 drives that game. People aren't talking about that because they're saying Ohio State's offense looked a little rough. Well, Texas's offense looked worse, and they were getting good field position. Ohio State was getting brutal field position over and over again, and their offense looked better. So I think Ohio State is the number one team as of right now. Against Grambling, I think they let it fly. I think they open up the offense a little bit. For Sand, I think they win pretty easily here. But that is going to do it for the Week 2 Top 25 College Football Rankings. Let me know what you guys think about my rankings. What did I get wrong? What do you agree with? Just let me know. Give me your rankings if you would like. Subscribe if you're new. We do college football every single week. We're going to be doing NFL every week. That's going to be coming tomorrow. We do college basketball as well every week when that season's going. We do NBA every week when that season's going. And we're going to have MLB videos every week as well. So right now we're having college football, NFL, and MLB videos weekly. So yeah, subscribe, turn on the noties, make sure you don't miss any of that. Like this if you enjoyed. But with all that being said, that is going to do it. Thank you for watching. And I will see you guys tomorrow with our Week 1 NFL picks. We're starting with that tomorrow. So get excited for that. I will see you guys then. Thank you so much for watching.